prior to it or before it. Again, this drug addiction or overmuch alcoholism also is related to promotion of crime. Because when you are addicted to a player, whether it's a good player or bad player, is irrelevant. When you're addicted to any player and you do not have economic means to have access to that player, then crime is willy-nilly born. Because addiction is something which demands things most terribly. A man who is addicted loses command of his own faculties and sense of justice and fair play, and he must have what he wants to have at that time. So that is the reason why these things are interrelated and they go on increasing and resulting in and proliferating in other smaller or bigger evils. So I'm quite satisfied with the Islamic teaching that alcoholism is prevalent. Thank you. Anything else, please? Yes?
Good evening, Your Holiness. My name is Nicola Wood, and my question is, in the introduction we heard that certain prophecies prophesied by Jesus Christ were fulfilled in the second Messiah. Can you tell me what those prophecies were, please?
Yes, certain prophecies of Jesus Christ were fulfilled in relation to his second advent. Is that right? Who introduced this subject?
Bilal.
Bilal? Why didn't you illustrate yourself?
I did very briefly. I only have short time to do so.
What prophecies did you have in mind, for instance?
I mentioned the eclipse of the sun and the moon.
Huh?
I mentioned the eclipse, the...
That's right,
darkness,
I understand. What else?
and the Holy Prophet's prophecy of the same thing, the eclipses.
Yes. You know, this is a very debatable issue as to how the prophecies should be read. That's why I inquired from him what prophecies he had in mind. I had some different prophecies in mind, but because the prophecies are always debated concerning their message and interpretation, so it's a difficult subject to enter, and on the basis of just this, it's not generally possible to make a clear-cut decision. But I had in mind a different prophecy which is mentioned in the Holy Quran very clearly, along with the prophecy he mentioned as well. That is to say that according to the Holy Quran, Jesus Christ prophesied that after him there will be a prophet whose name would be Ahmed. And in the same surah or elsewhere, it is also mentioned that Moses also, in the same surah, it is mentioned that Moses also had made a prophecy that Muhammad will appear in the, to be the beginner of a new faith, new religion, new era. So they are done together. Prophecy of Muhammad is related to Moses. Prophecy of Ahmad is related to Jesus Christ. Now we Ahmadis interpret this that as Muhammad's prophecy obviously relates to Prophet Muhammad, his first advent. And the Ahmad's prophecy should relate to the person who would appear in the latter days like Messiah appeared in the Ummah of Moses. So what he was to Moses, so Ahmad would be to Muhammad. This is our understanding of this prophecy. And I believe it's quite logical and understandable. But it's not something which can be enforced upon others as a strong logic. But if anybody reads this with an unprejudiced, unbiased attitude, he can see the wisdom and the balance of this. The Holy Quran says Moses prophesied Muhammad and Jesus prophesied Ahmad. Now relate this to the prophecy of the Holy Prophet himself that in his Ummah also there will be a Messiah. Like Moses prophesied the coming of Messiah, and other prophets after him did. So Hazrat Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the founder of Islam, also prophesied the coming of a Messiah. Now this could be the same. Now the issue is, what is the proof of that there was Muhammad name mentioned in the Bible? The proof lies in the fact that in the older translations of Bible, the prophecy of someone coming to bring about a new faith, new religion, new era is contained, and the word is translated as Muhammadin. Who will come? He will be Muhammadin. Now when the Muslims refer to this with relation to the Quranic reference, the Christians began to change, and also the Jewish people, they must have done it together, to change the translation from Muhammadin to the praiseworthy people. Now the argument they presented in favor of this change was that Muhammadim is a plural and Muhammad name is a singular. So a plural name can be translated into the meanings, translated in a manner that the meanings are translated, it should not be kept verbatim as such and transferred from one language to the other. This was their argument. But they do not tell you that in Hebrew, all names which are mentioned or uttered with respect are mentioned in plural. So Muhammadim is definitely a personal name of someone, but why it was pluralized was out of respect, because it is the custom of the language. Like in every language, in references, other ordinary references, we turn a singular into a plural. Instead of saying thou, you say aap, or in English you. In Urdu, instead of saying you, tu is thou, we say aap, which is a plural. So plurality in many contexts has a sense of respect. And in some languages, even the proper nouns are pluralized just out of respect. So that was no argument. They knew the laws of the language, yet they permitted this word to remain exactly the same instead of translating it. So the earlier scholars couldn't have missed the point. They were expecting somebody of this name. But when he did appear, then they began to change it. So it became controversial afterwards. Now, in case of Ahmad, also, we have the word Amath found in the New Testament, discovered from a monastery in Syria. The original words, which are not accepted by all scholars, were Amath. Now the word Amath can be translated as well as it can be kept as a proper noun, and it is closest to Ahmad. So again a debate begins. But it should be strange to everybody that the Holy Quran mentions two names, and names very close, very similar to those, are actually found in the Old Testament and New Testament. So there has to be something in it. So that is one prophecy which I want to point out, and the one he already has mentioned perhaps briefly, but if it is to be elaborated, I will only say this much, that the coming of Christ, the second advent I mean, was related to some heavenly events, when the moon will be darkened and the sun will cease to emit light. The same expression is used in the Holy Quran, that Shams فَإِذَا بَرِقَ الْبَصَرُ وَخَسَفَ الْقَمَرُ وَجُمِعَ الشَّمْسُ وَالْقَمَرُ. that when the